It's absolutely true that the distance makes the heart grow fonder, and I would like to believe the feeling is mutual. Every sunset is followed by a sunrise, a sign of hope, new beginnings, and what better place to catch that sunrise than the beautiful foothills of the Rockies overlooking to the Flatirons. A city that promises 300 days of sunshine is just one of the reasons to keep coming back year after year. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the 8th edition of JLF Colorado. 3 years, over 1,000 days, a couple of virtual festivals later, here we are, basking in the Boulder sun, sipping a cup of chai, and finally meeting each other in person as we celebrate this exchange of ideas and conversations. As the world evolved, so did we. But nothing replaces the experience of meeting people in person, sharing a meal, clicking our wine glasses, and most importantly, celebrating this gathering of literature, music, poetry, and more. To share the vision, may I please invite the man behind the Jaipur Literature Festival and many, many extensions of JLF from Maldives to Adelaide and from Belfast to Boulder. Please welcome Sanjoy Roy to say a few words.
Good morning. On behalf of Namita Gokhale, William Dalrymple, Suraj, and all our colleagues at Teamwork Arts, and of course, our GLF Boulder Board, it's just wonderful to be back here in person, in flesh and blood, so different from that Zoom screen that we're also exhausted with. Even as we drove from Denver, from the airport yesterday, and we sort of crested on the highway and started looking at the entire front line, it was like, wow, it's coming back home. And since the morning, just welcoming each of you who we haven't seen for 2 years, it's wonderful. And we're really glad and delighted that we're back here in Boulder, at the Boulder Library with the city of Boulder. So thank you all. And thank you, David, and all your colleagues, and Mayor Brackett for being here. And of course, all our wonderful writers, Tara and Gopal Gandhi, who you're going to listen to at the next session. Everybody continues to ask us, why do we do this madness year after year, especially in these very difficult times ever since COVID, which has really devastated the arts and the cultural community. We do it because we believe that the written word has great value, just to push back on that notion of ignorance and create an opportunity for knowledge and push back on the fear which leads to violence and hatred as we're seeing across the world. Today, more so, even as there are conflicts in Russia and Ukraine, and so many of the forgotten wars in Afghanistan and Libya and Syria, the houses that burned down just across from here. We've got 2 of the family members whose house burned last year in the Great Fire. The earth is at crisis, and I think it's each of our responsibilities to not just look to fight for freedom, democracy, but also for the planet. And it's not enough to say, oh, it's somebody else's fault. It's the mayor's responsibility, or the board's responsibility, or the library's responsibility. It isn't. It is each of our individual responsibility to sort of really work towards pushing back on this narrative of hatred that seems to be consuming us all. That's why we do these festivals. That's why we use the arts to be able to open up a window in our minds where we understand different languages, different traditions, different cultures, different ways of being, of the food, the clothes, and understanding that, everything is not about the other. We are finally all human beings working together and living on the only planet that we know, which is Earth. We're hoping that over the next few years, and I was saying this to our colleagues in the library and here at Boulder, that we will try to get to carbon net zero neutral. We're going to try and ensure that we get to trash neutral or waste neutral. So our request to all of you, every time you see something that's plastic, well, let's look at ways to be able to changing that around. When you all get up from your seats, make sure that you take your plastic and other stuff and put it into where it should go. We all need to work together on this. It's not going to happen just any one of us doing it. We have to do it together. And I'd like to end by just paying tribute to this incredible library, which is the reason we're here. 9 years ago, when Jesse, Jules, and Maruta sent an email saying, will you come to Boulder, Colorado? I had no idea where Boulder, Colorado was. But because I was sort of on my way between Chicago and I think San Francisco, I stopped off at Denver and arrived. And the minute I got to Boulder, Jesse said, we need to take you to the mall. So I sort of rolled my eyes and said, oh, these Americans. Yeah, but instead we came to the Boulder Public Library, and I walked down the Boulder Creek. It was beautiful. And it wasn't as developed as it was. And this is an institution that everybody needs to support. And I do hope, I know that you all have a big vote coming up for this to become part of the district. I'm not entirely sure how it sort of pans out, but I do hope all of you will continue to support libraries like this, which means so much to the community around, not just for those of you who come into the library, but young people perhaps who need to understand the value of knowledge and books and the free access that this place provides. So David, to you and your colleagues, and of course to the Boulder Library Foundation and all of you, more strength, more power to you, and I hope this wonderful institution continues to be supporting JLF here. So thank you all so much, and I'm going to ask, I think we're going to play Namitha's video. Namitha unfortunately couldn't be here with us, so we're going to hear from her, and then I'm going to ask William Dalrymple, our co-director and co-founder of the festival, to come and talk a little bit about the program and what we're going to see over the next 2 days. So Namitha Gokhale.
Dear friends, lovers of literature, JLF returns to beloved Boulder after some pandemic hiccups. Sadly, I'm not there in person. I'm heartbroken not to be there in person. But I'm with you all the way from my virtual vantage point in faraway New Delhi. Over the last 7 years, this celebration of books and ideas and conversations, of stories and narratives, poetry and music, has been replete with learnings and transformations. Our 2022 edition resonates with the unique spirit of Boulder and of our mother festival at Jaipur. We begin our festival with a special screening of the film Ahimsa Gandhi, The Power of the Powerless. Academic, author, and public intellectual Gopal Krishna Gandhi, the distinguished grandson of Mahatma Gandhi, speaks of his compilation of Gandhiji's letters to his son Devdas in his latest book, Scorching Love. Andre Achiman takes us through his meditative book of essays, Homo Irrealis, on the power of the imagination to forge a zone outside of time. Arundhati Subramaniam's remarkable book, Women Who Were Only Themselves, depicts the spiritual journey of 4 extraordinary women. The Long Night of Noir examines the fault lines and fissures of our society through the genre of crime and detective writing. There's poetry, fiction, documentary narrative, translation, and all the spaces in between, including the iconic painter and translator Daisy Rockwell, whose translation of Gitanjali Shree's novel Tomb of Sand won the International Booker Prize for 2022. There's so much more to do and discover through this enchanted weekend. From diplomacy to meritocracy, from Bruce Springsteen to the last queen of the Punjab, from the earliest Buddhist texts to the struggle to save an American neighborhood, from the conundrums of identity to stories of displacement and exile. We bring you a multiverse of voices and narratives. Across languages, across continents, our stories gift us our dreams. They bestow strength and resilience and the courage of the human imagination. We are each other's stories. Thank you.
Enough speeches, but just quickly to say how very, very happy we are to be back. I know Namita is particularly sad not to be here. She is a genuine lover of Boulder and the Rockies, and it's a highlight, I think, in her whole year. So we're very sorry to miss her here. I think one of the reasons that literary festivals have taken off across the world is that people everywhere spend so much time now with their screens online, looking at YouTube videos or communicating electronically, that actually seeing individuals in the flesh has an enormous frisson, a reality to it that nothing else can match. I know that the same is true in live music. People go more often than not now to see concerts because of the thrill of seeing in the flesh people who are used to seeing only pixelated on screens. And this is why the survival of this festival and others like it through the pandemic, which has been a very hard time for arts organizations such as the one that runs the festival, Teamwork Arts, and Sanjoy's extraordinary hive of activity, has managed to survive the terrible pressures that the pandemic has placed on it. And we continue to be able to bring international authors and bring books and literature, fiction and non-fiction, not just to Boulder, but across the States, across Asia, across Europe, and an ever-widening ripple of festivals. So please enjoy this weekend and straight on to our first event, which is on this stage in 5 minutes. Yeah. Suraj, come in and introduce the... Thank you.
Thanks, William. Thank you, Namita, for giving us this beautiful and wonderful programming each year and in every edition of the festival. If you look around, you can see the clear blue skies through the windows and ceiling. You can hear the gurgling of the creek. You can smell the books, and you can feel the warmth of the wonderful people at this beautiful venue who have not just supported and partnered with us, but also shown immense faith in the festival. May I please invite Director of Library and Arts, Boulder Public Library, David Farnan, to say a few words.
Thank you very much. It is an extraordinary privilege for me to be up here to speak with you for a few minutes today. My T-shirt today says, "Reading is a creative act." It could just as easily have said, "Reading is a courageous act." Or in some of our stories, in some of our histories, it could be an act of defiance. As we come back together, and I want to, Sanjoy is such a brother. I mean, the themes are so true. The thing, you know, this has been a trying time. A trying time for all of us in our collective cultures. Trying most in the sense in which we've become, our social networks have narrowed, and we've become more isolated from each other. And I know as we come out of the pandemic, I know I, for one, I want to hug a stranger. You know, I want to have a small talk in the grocery store. I want to see my friends at the coffee shop. And I desire really for nothing more than for things to settle down. And I think that's true of all of us. We want things to settle down a little bit. I think most of the people I speak to, they want their lives to return to some level of placidity. And it's unfortunate because we don't live in placid times. The public library in this country has a long and interesting history. I wish I could speak for hours, but they didn't invite me to do that. But you know, it has its heroes, Carnegie and Ben Franklin and all that other stuff. But the truth of the matter is, if you dig into the history of public libraries, it really began with the women's movement in the 1870s and 80s after the Civil War, going from door to door, collecting free books and establishing reading rooms. It was the idea, the public library that you know today, the idea was born out of people who didn't have the opportunity to vote. It was conjunctive with the suffragist movement. And so it's the idea of the public library is really, this is what somebody invents if they are totally disenfranchised. So we have three basic principles, bedrock principles. It's no surprise. We're free and open to all. We are committed to providing accurate representations of the truth, factual information. And we fight against censorship in all of its forms. So, some of these seem kind of charged, but I can tell you when I signed my library form 30 years ago, I did not think that they would all become politicized in my lifetime, and they have. Some of these things seem like, gosh, this can't be political. But tomorrow, libraries across the country and bookstores and people who love reading begin the celebration of Banned Books Week. It's a celebration of authors and reading of people whose books have been censored over the course of time in the United States. So they're illustrious. It's Mark Twain, it's Maya Angelou, it's Toni Morrison, and today Maya Kobabe and Juno Dawson. So yesterday's headline in The Guardian and the New York Times and in today's Daily Camera, America is facing an unprecedented increase in the level of challenges to books that people can read. This is the highest numbers we've seen ever in 2021, and in 2022 we're on a strong pace to actually exceed that number. So make no mistake, this is a coordinated campaign of censorship. It is a focused attempt by elements in our society who are trying to control what you and your children and your neighbors are allowed to read. It is a culture war, complete with armed people on one side and the First Amendment on the other, and they are saying this is what you can and cannot read. In the past, it's not the first culture war we've had, right? In the past, challenges to books have been more about a single book. People, good people, who come and say, I don't believe the words in this book match my values. And that's a challenging kind of thing. But today's culture war is totally different. It is characterized by people submitting laundry lists of books, hundreds of books. And the books are almost exclusively about the issues of race and gender in our society. They are predominantly authors or books by or about Black people or people who are LGBTQ. This cannot stand in our society. So they are also challenging librarians and threatening librarians with criminal prosecution. So criminal prosecution for distribution of materials that are deemed to be obscene or harmful to minors or pervasively vulgar. In Texas, elected officials went into a library after dark and removed books from the shelves. This is the situation that we're in this country right now. So what can you do? What can we do? I urge you all to read. Reading brings us together. As James Baldwin said, it's a way for us to realize that we are not alone in the world. Reading is, at its most basic level for James Baldwin, was that I realized that the pain and suffering that I felt was a shared experience among all of us. So reading is a creative act, but it is also a courageous act. It is a healing act. It is an act of solidarity. It's a way for you to read and experience the stories of people who are not you. They are other than you. And I expressly admonish you today and this weekend, if I could ask one thing. This festival is really a few of my favorite days in the library every year. I urge you to listen. Engage and listen to other people's stories. And please, please enjoy yourself. I'm so pleased to see you all here again. Thank you.
Thank you, David, for hosting us in this beautiful space, and we are always so delighted to be here. Thank you very much. As you drive towards Boulder, the landscape change. The Flatirons welcome you. The skies automatically turns bluer. There's something about the city that is unique and irreplaceable. Thank you for having JLF in your city and giving us our first home in the United States. Please welcome the Honorable Mayor of the City of Boulder, Aaron Brockett.
Good morning, everyone. It's such a pleasure to see you all here, see your smiling faces. It's been a dark few years, and we haven't been able to gather like this in a long time. So this is doubly and triply the pleasure that the JLF usually is. So good to have you here. And it's such an honor and a pleasure to welcome distinguished speakers and guests from all over the world to our city. And we're very grateful for the partnership with JLF, and so glad that they've chosen our city here to have this festival in the United States. And the city has always been a great supporter of this festival and done whatever we could over the years to make it happen. And I'm joined here today as well by my city council colleague, Nicole Spear, to show our support for the festival, who's wearing a Defend Public Libraries t-shirt, appropriately enough. So And one of the things that I love so much about this festival is I consider it a love letter to public libraries, right? Look around you. Take a moment to look up at this beautiful building, this beautiful space, right? And there's a natural beauty to it, but what's most important, the greater beauty is the ideas that are contained within and the free access to information that the public library represents, right? It's such an extraordinary institution, and as David movingly said, it's under threat right now, right? So these are somewhat dark times. We're seeing rising tides of extremism, misinformation, and censorship. But the antidote to that is the free flow and exchange of ideas and conversation with people who feel differently from you and learning from folks who are different from you. And that's what this festival is all about. So I'm so glad that we're here again together, and I encourage you to go out, listen to all the amazing speakers, and I promise you that by the end of the day tomorrow, you'll be changed, you'll be strengthened, you'll be fortified. So go forth and enjoy. Thanks so much, everyone, for being here.
Thank you very much, Mayor. Thank you, David. For those of you, I think all of you know, but 9 years ago, the reason why we arrived here was this impassioned email that I talk about that Jesse and Jules, who were in India, they'd gone to Sanchi, I think, to attend a conference with the Dalai Lama, and then wandered into the Jaipur Literature Festival, were completely overwhelmed, and on their way back from Jaipur all the way to Boulder, Jules fell ill, and at some point of time when they came into being, they nudged each other and they were like, what if? And it was because of them they got Maruta to send William and me this impassioned email saying, come to Boulder. Jessie is going to be stepping down after being our executive director over the past 8 years. She'll continue to be on the board. But I wanted to use this occasion to just on behalf of us all acknowledge the incredible effort that Jessie's made over the past years to have us in Boulder, and even in the dark times where we were every 3 years sort of, how are we going to make this happen? How will we raise the money? She stayed the course and she continued to work every day to make this possible. So on behalf of all of us at the Jaipur Literature Festival and JLF and Teamwork Arts, like to thank Jessie and their great support, Jules and Maruta, for doing all they've done for bringing JLF here to Boulder, Colorado. So thank you. Thank you, Jessie. Thank you, Jules. Thank you so much, Maruta. This is an amazing moment, and thank you for keeping the faith. Thank you so much.
If I'll talk a little bit more about Jessie, I'll get emotional, so I'll save that for now. We have two packed days of sessions lined up, from history and politics to fiction and poetry. There's something for everyone. Please do attend the festival and spread the word far and wide. And importantly, if you love it, please do support by donating and help us coming back to your beautiful city year after year. On that note, let's kickstart our sessions for today. And our first session at the Skyscape is Scorching Love, Gandhi's Letters to His Son Devdas. Gopal Krishna Gandhi in conversation with Sanjoy Roy. Thank you once again and for being here, and enjoy the festival.